The sky tore open with fire as three colossal ships descended toward a dead world. For 38 years, one man had sent a signal into the void, never knowing if anyone would hear it. Now they had come, carrying a mark that should have been lost to time, a mark that belonged to his own bloodline. What they wanted could change everything. If you are new to the channel, then please subscribe to the channel and like the video and tell us where are you watching from. Now, let's jump into the story. Pointedly, the wind moved slowly across the barren plains of Caldera 9. Fine dust swirled in the air, settling into the cracks of the dry earth. The sky was pale and empty, holding no promise of rain or change. For years, nothing had disturbed this forgotten world. Marcus Hale stood at the edge of the old observation platform. His boots pressed into the rusted metal as he scanned the horizon. The beacon tower rose behind him, its frame patched with decades of repairs. It had been his family's duty to keep it running. 3 generations had watched the skies, sending signals into the void. No one had ever answered. The beacon's hum was a constant sound in Marcus's life. It was the heartbeat of the outpost, steady and unchanging. He had learned its rhythms as a child, following his father through the control rooms. Now he was alone, the last watchman of this place. The others had gone long ago, leaving only silence and the endless dust. That morning had been like any other. Marcus checked the power cells, adjusted the transmission frequency, and logged the daily report. The computer's voice confirmed the signal was active. It was routine, a ritual that had lost its meaning years ago. Still, he kept doing it. His father had told him that duty was not about reward, but about keeping faith. As the sun began to sink, a faint vibration reached his feet. It was subtle at first, like a distant tremor. Marcus frowned and stepped away from the platform's railing. The vibration grew stronger, pulsing through the metal beneath him. He turned his eyes to the sky. A streak of fire cut through the upper atmosphere, then another, and another. 3 burning trails descended toward the planet, leaving glowing scars across the pale sky. Marcus's breath caught in his throat. For a moment, he thought it might be meteors, but the movement was too controlled, too deliberate. His pulse quickened. He reached for the old binoculars hanging from his belt. Through the scratched lenses, he saw the first ship break through the clouds. Its hull glinted in the fading light, massive and purposeful. Behind it, 2 more ships followed in perfect formation. Marcus felt the weight of the moment pressing on him. The beacon had worked. After all these years, someone had heard the call. But who were they, and why now? He turned and ran toward the bunker entrance. The heavy door recognized his biometric code and slid open with a hiss. Inside, the air was cooler, carrying the faint scent of oil and dust. He let the door seal shut behind him, shutting out the wind. His boots echoed on the metal stairs as he descended. 29 steps down to the command room. He had counted them every day of his life. The lights flickered as the old systems came alive. Screens blinked on, showing static before resolving into data streams. Sentinel system active, the computer's voice announced. User Hale Marcus. Security clearance hereditary. The words filled the empty space, a reminder of the past. Once, 50 people had worked here. Now, only Marcus remained. He moved to the long-range scanner and powered it up. The machine groaned, its circuits struggling to respond. After a moment, the display lit up with a schematic of the incoming vessels. 3 capital-class ships, each surrounded by smaller craft. The system struggled to count them all. Computer, "Magnify central vessel hull markings," Marcus ordered. The image blurred, then sharpened. Marcus froze. His heart pounded against his ribs. The insignia on the lead ship was not alien. It was the crest of Hale Industries, his family's company, a company that had been gone for over a century. Marcus stepped back from the console, his mind racing. Hale Industries had built the colony ship that brought his great-grandfather here. It had been the last mission before Earth's collapse. There had been no talk of a return mission, no resources left to send help. And yet, here they were. He stared at the screen, trying to make sense of it. The ships were closing in, their formation precise and steady. The smaller craft moved like a swarm, scanning the surface as they descended. Marcus felt a mix of fear and hope rising in him. If they were friendly, this could be salvation. If they were not, he was already too close to the end. The computer's voice broke the silence. Estimated time to landing, 4 hours. Marcus exhaled slowly. 4 hours to prepare. 4 hours to decide what to do. He turned off the scanner and leaned against the console. His eyes drifted to the old photograph pinned to the wall. It showed his father and grandfather standing beside the beacon, tools in hand. They had believed in the signal. They had believed someone would come. Marcus straightened. Whatever happened next, he would face it. He was a Hale, and this was his post. The signal in the dust had been answered, and the world was about to change. The lake lay still under a pale morning sky. Its surface reflected the jagged hills that surrounded it, broken only by the slow ripples from Marcus Hale's fishing line. This lake had once been poisoned, a dead pool left behind by the failed terraforming cycles. Years of patient work had brought it back to life. Now it held 7 species of fish, each one a small victory in a world that had forgotten how to thrive. Marcus sat on a worn wooden crate at the water's edge. The air was cool, carrying the faint scent of wet soil. He had come here for quiet, for the steady rhythm of casting and reeling. It was the one place where the weight of the empty outpost felt far away. His father had fished here too, though in those days the water had been dangerous. They had come anyway, more for the silence than the catch. The fishing rod trembled in his hands. At first, Marcus thought it was a bite. But the pull was wrong. Too steady, too deep. Then came the sound. A low, rolling thunder that seemed to rise from the ground itself. Marcus looked up sharply. There were no storms on Caldera 9 anymore. The atmosphere was too thin for that. He stood, scanning the horizon. A faint line of light cut across the sky, growing brighter with each second. Then another appeared beside it, and another. 3 burning trails, moving in perfect formation. Marcus's chest tightened. He had seen nothing like this in 38 years of watching the skies. He reeled in his line with quick, practiced motions. 38 years, he muttered under his breath. And they choose today. His father would have laughed at that. Dr. Jonas Hale had kept the beacon running until his final day, sending daily transmissions into the void. Before him, Marcus's grandfather had done the same. And before that, his great-grandfather, who had first landed here on the colony ship Endurance. Marcus packed his gear with care. There was no need to rush. If the ships were hostile, speed would not save him. If they were friendly, they would find him soon enough. Still, his steps quickened as he began the 2-mile hike back to the outpost. The trail wound through dry gullies and over cracked ridges. Each time he crested a hill, his eyes went to the sky. The contrails were brighter now, their descent unmistakable. The outpost came into view, its metal walls dull under the sun. The beacon tower rose above it, still sending its silent call into the void. Marcus reached the main gate in 27 minutes, a personal record. The biometric scanner blinked, then the heavy door slid open with a reluctant hiss. Inside, the corridors glowed with pulsing amber light. Emergency protocols had activated. He passed the armory without slowing. The weapons inside were relics, useless against ships capable of crossing the stars. Instead, he headed straight for the command center. The air smelled faintly of ozone as the old systems powered up. Screens flickered, displaying streams of data. "Computer," Marcus said, his voice steady. "Composition of approaching vessels." The reply came in the same calm tone he had heard all his life. "Unknown materials." Configuration suggests human origin. Marcus frowned. Humans had not been spacefaring for over a century. The collapse of Earth's governments had ended that age. "Analysis confirmed," the computer continued. "Design matches Hale Industries' pattern, circa year 2191. Marcus felt a chill run through him. Hale Industries had been his family's company. It had built the Endurance, the last great colony ship before the fall. He had the company archives stored in the database. Every blueprint, every launch record. There had been no mention of a second fleet. "Computer," he said, leaning closer to the console. "Any record of a rescue mission after Endurance?" "Negative," the voice replied. "No records exist." Marcus sank into the worn command chair. His mind raced. Ships bearing his family's mark were approaching this abandoned world. Ships that should not exist. From a company long dead. From a planet presumed uninhabitable. He turned to the external cameras. The ships were still high in the sky, but their descent was steady. The lead vessel was massive, its hull gleaming in the sunlight. The smaller craft moved in tight formation around it, scanning the surface. Marcus recognized the pattern. It was the same search protocol used in the Endurance's landing manuals. He thought of his father again, standing beside the beacon, eyes fixed on the stars. They had both known the odds of a reply were almost nothing, but they had kept the signal alive anyway. Now, against all reason, someone had answered. The computer's voice broke his thoughts. Estimated time to landing, 2 hours. Marcus exhaled slowly. 2 hours until the truth arrived. 2 hours until he learned whether this was salvation or the end. He looked once more at the insignia on the lead ship, the crest of Hale Industries, the mark of his family. It was a symbol he had grown up with, carved into tools, stitched into uniforms, etched into the beacon's control panel. And now it was coming back to him from across the stars. Marcus leaned back in the chair, the hum of the systems filling the room. The echoes of the past were no longer just memories. They were real, and they were closing in. Marcus Hale stood in the dim light of the command center. The hum of the old systems filled the air, steady and low. On the main screen, the incoming ships grew larger with each passing minute. Their formation was tight, their movements precise. It was the kind of discipline he had only seen in military drills recorded in the archives. He leaned closer to the console, adjusting the external cameras. The lead vessel was massive, its hull a deep silver that caught the sunlight. The smaller craft moved around it like a living shield, scanning the surface in sweeping arcs. Marcus recognized the pattern instantly. It was the same search formation described in the old Hale Industries landing protocols. The computer's voice broke the silence. "Perimeter breach detected in Sector 4. Marcus's eyes narrowed. He switched the feed to the outer cameras. Figures were moving across the cracked earth, their shapes outlined against the pale dust. They wore full environmental suits, each one sealed and reinforced. Their helmets reflected the sun, hiding their faces completely. The group advanced with measured steps. Their movements were cautious but confident, as if they knew exactly where they were going. Marcus studied their posture. It was not the slow, uncertain walk of explorers. It was the steady pace of trained personnel. He had seen that kind of precision in old footage of colony security teams. The lead figure stopped suddenly. It turned its head toward one of the cameras, the mirrored visor catching the light. Then the figure raised a gloved hand. 3 fingers spread, thumb tucked in. Marcus froze. It was the Hale family signal, a private gesture passed down through generations, never taught outside the bloodline. His mind raced. How could they know that sign? Was it a trick? Or was it something far more impossible? The gesture held for a moment. Then the hand lowered. The group continued forward, closing the distance to the bunker. Marcus stepped back from the console. His pulse was loud in his ears. He moved to the reinforced viewport and looked out across the barren land. The figures were closer now, their suits marked with symbols he could not make out from this distance. The dust swirled around their boots as they advanced. The computer spoke again. Unidentified humanoid lifeforms approaching primary entrance. Estimated arrival in 3 minutes. Marcus's hands tightened into fists. 3 minutes until contact. 3 minutes to decide whether to meet them or seal the bunker and wait. He turned toward the inner airlock. The heavy door stood ready, its locking mechanism still strong after decades. He could keep them out if he wanted to. But the image of the family signal burned in his mind. If there was even a chance they were connected to him, he had to know. Marcus returned to the console and activated the internal defense systems. Not to attack, but to monitor. He wanted every camera, every sensor, every scanner ready. The approach of the strangers was steady, unhurried. They were not rushing, not trying to force entry. It was as if they expected him to open the door. The lead figure reached the outer gate. It paused, looking directly into the nearest camera again. Marcus could almost feel the weight of that gaze through the layers of glass and steel. The figure raised its hand once more, repeating the family signal. This time, the motion was slower, deliberate. Marcus's breath came slow and deep. He stepped toward the control panel for the outer gate. His finger hovered over the release switch. The computer's voice was calm. Outer gate access request detected, awaiting authorization. He hesitated. The sensible choice was to wait, to gather more information. But something in him pushed against that caution. The beacon had been calling for decades. Someone had answered, and they carried his family's mark. Marcus pressed the switch. The outer gate opened with a deep mechanical groan. Dust swept in on the wind, curling around the figures as they stepped forward. The lead figure stopped just inside the threshold. The others fanned out slightly, maintaining a protective formation. Marcus stood in the inner airlock, separated from them by a final barrier. He could see the details of their suits now. The material was advanced, far beyond anything left in the outpost. Small lights pulsed along the seams, and the chest plates bore an emblem. It was the Hale crest, identical to the one on the lead ship. The lead figure reached up and touched the side of its helmet. The visor cleared slightly, revealing a shadowed face beneath. Marcus could not yet see the features, but the outline was human. The figure raised its hand again. The family signal, precise and unmistakable. The computer's voice was quiet now, almost distant. Authorization required to open inner airlock. Marcus's hand rested on the control. His heart pounded, but his voice was steady. Authorization granted. the inner door began to open. The sound of the mechanism filled the air, each click and shift echoing in the chamber. Marcus kept his eyes on the lead figure, waiting for the moment when the truth would be revealed. The strangers had reached him. The approach was over. What came next would change everything. The inner airlock door slid open with a slow mechanical groan. Marcus Hales stood still, his eyes locked on the lead figure. The sound of the heavy seals disengaging echoed through the chamber. Dust swirled in the thin air between them. The figure stepped forward, boots striking the metal floor with a steady rhythm. The others remained just behind, their formation tight and protective. Marcus could now see the details of the suit more clearly. The material was sleek, reinforced, and marked with the crest of Hale Industries. The lead figure reached up and released the helmet locks. With a soft hiss, the visor lifted away. A face emerged from the shadow, framed by short dark hair, and eyes that carried both caution and recognition. The woman looked directly at Marcus, her gaze steady. "My name is Lyra Hale," she said, her voice clear and calm. "I am your kin, though many generations apart." Marcus felt the words settle heavily in his mind. He had imagined many possibilities, but not this. Lyra explained that Hale Industries had not ended with the fall of Earth. Before the collapse, a second fleet had been launched in secret. It carried survivors to a distant system, far beyond the reach of the chaos that consumed the homeworld. There, they rebuilt, carrying forward the name and legacy of the Hale family. For decades, they had searched for other lost colonies. Most signals they found were faint echoes, long dead before they could arrive. But Marcus's beacon had been different. It was strong, consistent, and unmistakably of Hale origin. It had guided them across light years to this forgotten world. Marcus listened in silence, his thoughts moving between disbelief and relief. He had lived his entire life believing he was the last. Now, standing before him was proof that his family's bloodline had endured. The beacon had not been a futile ritual. It had been a lifeline. Lyra stepped closer, her expression softening. "We came to bring you home," she said, "and to restore this place. It was never meant to be abandoned." Behind her, the other crew members began unloading equipment from their packs. Tools, scanners, and containers of supplies filled the airlock floor. Marcus glanced toward the viewport. Outside, the larger ships were lowering cargo modules to the surface. He could see automated drones moving across the barren land, beginning the work of renewal. The sight stirred something deep within him. For years, he had fought to keep the outpost alive with failing systems and dwindling resources. Now, in a single day, the sky had opened and brought help. He felt the weight of isolation lifting from his shoulders. Lyra placed a small device on the console. It projected a three-dimensional map of Caldera 9. Bright points marked planned restoration zones. Water reclamation units, atmospheric processors, and agricultural domes would soon rise where there had been only dust. Marcus studied the map, his mind already imagining the changes. The lake he had fished in that morning would be only the beginning. Forests could grow again. The air could thicken. Life could return to this place. He turned back to Lyra. "Why risk so much to come here?" he asked. Her answer was simple. "Because family is worth finding, and because every world we recover brings us closer to rebuilding what was lost." The words struck him with quiet force. He thought of his father, his grandfather, and the generations before them. They had all kept the beacon alive, never knowing if it would matter. Now he understood. It had always mattered. The crew began moving deeper into the outpost. Assessing its condition, Marcus walked beside Lyra, showing her the control rooms, the storage bays, and the beacon tower. She listened intently, asking questions about the repairs he had made. Over the years, there was respect in her voice when she spoke of his work. By the time they reached the observation platform, the sun was low on the horizon. The sky was streaked with gold and crimson. From here, Marcus could see the landing site in the distance. The ships stood like sentinels, their hulls gleaming in the fading light. Lyra joined him at the railing. "This is where you watched for us," she said. Marcus nodded. "Every day," he replied. "And now you're here." They stood in silence for a moment, the wind carrying the scent of dust and metal. Marcus felt the quiet shift from emptiness to possibility. The world was no longer just his burden to carry. It was a place with a future. As the last light faded, Marcus turned to Lyra. "What happens now?" he asked. She smiled faintly. "Now we begin again." Marcus looked out at the horizon. For the first time in his life, it did not feel like the edge of the world. It felt like a doorway, a path leading to something greater than survival. A beginning, not an ending. He knew there would be challenges ahead. Restoring a world would not be easy, but he would not face it alone. The beacon had done its work. It had brought family back to him. Marcus took a deep breath, the cool air filling his lungs. He stepped away from the railing and toward the future waiting below. The truth had been revealed, and with it came hope strong enough to light the darkest sky.